All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is a workshop of the Board of County Commissioners of Manatee County. Today is Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. It is warm, but it is a beautiful day today in Manatee County. And we're going to start off the day by honoring God and by honoring our great nation. Commissioner James Satcher will start off leading the invocation, and then Commissioner Bellamy will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So at this time, if you're able, please stand.
Lord, we thank you that your mercies are new every morning, and today is a brand new day. And we pray that today you would be with us. And not only that, because we know that you've already promised that, but Lord, we pray that we would make our decisions and act according to the high standards that you set before us. Lord, I pray, I know there will be disagreements here today, but I thank you, Lord, that even though we disagree, we don't have to be disagreeable. And even though we may disagree on policy, we can have nothing but love for those around us. And that's not because of something that's on the inside of us. That's because of something you've done on the inside of us. So, Lord, we pray that you would help us, lead us, guide us. We look to you for your wisdom. As smart as some of the people in this room are, we can't know everything. You know the future. You hold us in your hands. And so, Lord, we look to you for your guidance, your wisdom, and your direction. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It had been a while, but I forgot how much I enjoy a James Satcher prayer. He delivers a great prayer, yeah. And you always get the words right on that Pledge of Allegiance, I'll tell you, every time. I don't want to leave you out. Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about utilities, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Hopes to get us started.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We end this 2-week period of budget meetings and work sessions and workshops with our largest enterprise, the enterprise that truly does touch pretty much everybody in the county and all our visitors every day. With the water we drink, sometimes we wonder what's in the water, but it's the best water I've had from any municipality around the world. They handle moving stuff away from our homes and treating it, and they have been working diligently. They have a big job, and with that, I'll introduce you to our infamous Director of Utilities, and he can introduce his team, Mr. Gore. It's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hopes. I'm a little worried when he says infamous. How you doing, Commissioner? Yeah, I've got my team here, and I'm going to introduce them shortly. We have a new addition that normally y'all don't see. We had a fiscal manager leave, and we got a new fiscal manager by the name of Victor Ortiz. He's over here in the corner. He's helping us with finances now underneath Heather Dildine. So we're going to try to not drag this out today. We're going to try to show you highlights. We watched yesterday and seen that Sheila and her team kind of give you some graphs and stuff up there. And we'd like to highlight some of our bigger projects and talk about our operations and, of course, talk about our decision units. So we are open to questions. I've got to manage. Heather, if you would, yes. Kevin Morse. Deputy Director. Kevin focuses more on the water. Jeff Goodwin, wastewater, focuses more on the wastewater, but both these men help me with the whole department and help me with the other two programs. Rob Schenkel, solid waste. Y'all are probably getting used to seeing him a little bit now. And of course, Heather, who I just introduced. And you'll see the number under here. That's the amount of staff that are under them is what that number reflects in each of those programs. So as we move forward, if y'all have got a question, if I can't answer it, and believe me, I probably am going to get stumped today because it's pretty big, but they're right here and I think they can get it. So with that, We always like to open up with our mission statement to provide the community with utility services of the highest possible quality at the lowest possible cost. I know everybody doesn't believe that always, but we're pretty proud of it. We're the lowest in the region, usually for most of our rates, and we get some pretty high rankings on our water quality. And as talked about in the board, sometimes we do some things in the water plant that's even improving that water quality further. And we're real proud of it. It's a great team to work with. They take it to heart. Some of y'all remember previous water side there, Kevin replaced Mark Simpson. Kevin's heart's in it. He comes from Peace River, and his heart is in it, and he lives here in Manatee County, so he's happy to be here now, and he's servicing Manatee County and really focused in on our water and brings us a lot as we visit Peace River. Commissioner Cruz helps us with that, which it's just been a great team right there and able to work with the authority like that and know that we got good representation there. If you would, Heather. Always like to remind everybody we're an enterprise fund. Everything that we do is funded by rates. As you all know, we receive no tax revenue, and that's a lot of the general public will refer to us in a different manner and think that their taxes pay it, but this is our little chance to say no. This is how it's done. This is y'all's opportunity to recognize we are an enterprise fund. It's your own business. It's y'all's business. The idea of the utility, the whole time I've been in it, and I don't even tell how long I've been in it no more, because it's a little embarrassing, but the whole idea of it is to operate at cost, not to make money. Our goal is to be efficient and keep the rates as low as we can. We don't have some nest egg. We all went through the nest egg reserve game a couple of years ago. We see how that works. We've spent that down. The last time I looked, we had $1 million, not quite $1 million over our level that we've got to keep at $20 million for the system. So that's spent down and is not there no more in our unrestricted cash. Most of y'all know what restricted cash is at this point, so I won't go into all that, but just a reminder that the rates pay it. So, level of service, as you all know, we're 24/7. It can't shut down. There's 3 wastewater plants or reclamation plants, a potable water facility, and of course the landfill that's 6 days a week. So it's a lot to keep up with. There's a lot of minimizing risk to the system and regulatory compliance and affordable rates. All that we look at as part of the level of service. We want to be proactive with all of the complaints we've got, and you'll see as we go through here a number of lift stations, these facilities I'm talking about, the landfill I'm talking about, there's odor issues there, just a host of things that we try to weigh in our level of service and how we live in the community with all the residents and do this. So our little logo is always on, always safe, and always affordable. This next slide, I got a few comments on it, but it kind of brings you on the water and wastewater side. It kind of walks you through where you're at today. It starts up there on the lake in Wellfield, and you'll see that it says 55 million gallons a day is our permitted capacity. I thought y'all would be interested to know that the plant itself is permitted for 84 million gallons a day. Right now, between the Wellfield and Lake Manatee, this is what our daily capacity is what we're permitted for. This dry season, we was tapping that 55 number quite a few times as we came into rainy season. Some of y'all probably heard it. We worked with the fire departments and other folks in the county on flushing and stuff like that and got them to limit it. Worked with Sarasota. They was struggling more so than us. Some of their water supply had suffered some hits. And as y'all know, we supply Sarasota a little bit. So we was really touching this number this year. And on top of that, doing a lot of work at our water treatment plant. Normally we wouldn't have had a problem, but we had half of that plant offline. And so we didn't have the ability to treat as much water as we normally do, so it was tapping us out. So that's a little bit of where we stand, and there's a lot of conversation to come over the next year. I'm sure that we'll be in front of you with the administration talking about what we're doing for future water supply as we get closer. We've got some opportunities there besides Peace River that we're looking at, and trying to get through it with the administration now and narrow it down to what avenues we want to take. So we move on down. That water that I just talked about, it averages 45 million gallons a day if you look at the whole year, because rainy season we don't use as much. We have 2,000 miles of water distribution lines now that we maintain. We do all the maintenance on that on a daily basis, operate that. From there, it travels through, it's utilized by the customer. It goes through 1,800 miles of wastewater line that we take care of and maintain across the county, I should say, in our service area. From there, it goes to 720 lift stations. And there's some slides back here that talk about the cost of lift stations. It's an expensive program and how many we're putting in a year. So from there to the lift stations, and then finally over to our 3 wastewater plants. We're averaging treating 26.4 million gallons a day. We are permitted there currently for 33.5 between the 3 plants. So we've got a little bit of room there. Each plant is different in its own area. And from there, that water goes back out as reuse in the areas that we have it, to the tune of 16.5 million gallons a day. Then the process repeats itself. So I thought we thought these numbers would be interesting to y'all to show them to you.
They are. They're very interesting to Commissioner Whitmore. She has a question.
Yeah, former Commissioner Ron Getman stopped me yesterday. It was actually about this. I think I'd sent you guys an email that he had sent a while ago, but he was worried about the development in the community and not enough water and afraid of a drought. And he recalls, and I had asked Charlie a while ago, Hunsaker, and it did come to fruition. You're the only one that probably knows. But years ago, the county commission had was buying another field to be able to have a reserve for more water for the future. Charlie told me that went away and the land got sold later on. But do you know anything about, have you guys, I'm sure you're the professionals in Peace River and everybody else, I told him about that, but he's just a little bit nervous to make sure that what we're seeing all over the country isn't going to happen in this area, and that you feel assured that we have enough drinking water.
We feel really good right now.
I told him.
We have, besides working with the Peace River Authority, we have some options that have opened up within county. We've been due diligent. There's a value to well credits. So we, and there's a value to reclaim water that a lot of the larger development in the north and in the east very much want, and those other utilities. So we've been managing to accumulate some well credits that allows us to take better advantage of our well field, number one. There's transmission, getting that product back and forth. But we have several opportunities, but we just don't really want to get into it today. But of course, Peace River's sitting there. That's on our plate to deal with, and what we want to invest in that. We're a long ways out from needing water from them, but we're working with them on a weekly and monthly basis to try to make sure that our bases are covered. We don't have no concerns with water supply.
I think the word was well field, which I didn't know what
Probably.
it was. Okay, thank you.
Probably.
So, Mr. Gore, I would just one quick thing that, just for the general public, a lot of people think that we supply Sarasota all of their drinking water, but in fact, we only supply a very small amount of drinking water to them. I think it's like, how many? I'll let you give the number. How many gallons a day are we giving them?
Yes, they're permitted. I think right now they're permitted for 5, and they've been taking like 4. I think about 4.5 is what they've been taking, and that dwindles down. That ends, and
You're weaning them off of that, correct?
we're weaning them off. But they have struggles too, and they're talking to us about wanting to extend that, and we're working with them on it. If we're going to take water from Peace River, we've got to come through Sarasota County.
Right.
So we're working with them on it. We're not giving the farm away, and they recognize that. So, but we don't have any problem, and we could give them. We feel confident to continue to give them water for a while if we can work a deal with them on that pipeline through there.
Sure.
Just
Great.
in a nutshell.
Thank you for clearing that up.
You're very welcome. So, thought we'd start with solid waste a little bit, just to give you a reminder. And obviously, I'm leading up to something here, but just a reminder of what we do in each one of these programs. 6 days a week is the operation. Sunday's the day we take a break, providing there's no problems and no storms. Remaining life right now as it stands today is 19 and a half years for that site as it stands. Some of y'all have probably watched, and some of you have probably been here long enough to know that that number can fluctuate based on waste stream and population growth and a number of different things of how we do business. A lot of things can affect it. Just for giggles, the other day, I asked Rob, y'all all seen where the city of Bradenton quit recycling? And the whole county, or the whole country, the whole state, everybody's struggling with collection problems, especially those folks that do it themselves, and trying to keep that organization straight from a salary basis, what you pay garbage collectors, drivers. So with that, I asked Rob, because we have access to the information of what they recycle in tons and stuff like that, if they was to not go back to it, and I'm sure, I would like to think City of Bradenton will go back to that when this economy stabilizes. If they was to stay that rate, that would chop a year off the life of this landfill, if they was to just give up recycling. So it's not something we want to do from any perspective. It's important to the life of it. So,
Commissioner Servia.
Hi, Mike. I have a question about that. So I hear from people all the time, they're either confused that the county is county's not recycling anymore, and I have to explain to them it's the city. But I wondered, is there an opportunity to do some sort of interlocal agreement and do recycling with the city in partnership to just get it done?
well, we're struggling with our franchise haulers to keep up with it. To be honest with you, it's not. I'm sure in my heart, it's not the city wanting to do it or trying to save money. It is what this country has gotten to be with inflation and the pandemic, and it's really hard to get folks out there to drive those garbage trucks and pay a competitive wage. That's a tough business to be in. That's a tough job. Those gentlemen start at 4 a.m, a lot of times 7 o'clock at night by the time they finally park that truck. So it's just a really hard for them to keep employees. And we're struggling, as you know, probably. We many years ago, 14 years ago to be exact, went to 2 haulers to create some competition in that arena, and it worked. And I would have never guessed where we're at today, because one hauler's doing a lot better than the other hauler for the land. I would have never guessed it to be the way it is. But we know it's across the state like that. If you want to read an interesting article, I noticed in Port St. Lucie on June 5th, there's an article in there. They just awarded a new franchise contract. And it's a tough business. A lot of folks are considering doing it themselves, but I would never recommend that to this board. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do know it's a tough business, and I understand the labor issues. I was recently speaking with a city council person who said it was just flat out a business decision, because it had become so expensive for them to do it at the scale that they're doing it.
Right.
And that's why I thought there may be an opportunity to partner together and help the whole community. And then glass recycling. I was told that there's no convenient place to recycle glass.
Yeah, there's a glass market here, still on 63rd, right, Rob? There's a glass market, but you'll hear that some people seem to be under the impression there's no market for that, but there is. I don't know how we would mix those two together, to be honest with you, Commissioner. I don't. We're changing our model up and how we're doing it in this collection agreement that we're working on now. I'm not at liberty to talk about that a lot. It's on the street right now, and we will be collecting. Those proposals are due the end of the month. So after that, I'm sure that we'll be chatting with y'all some as we go through the rest of the process. But we have changed our recycling approach some, and we're hoping we're ahead of the game on that and can stay in the game. So I answer your question? Okay. Recycling number, 65%. That's something that we are very, very proud of. Most of the counties of the 67 counties, Rob, I believe we're rating 4th or 5th in recycling across the state. And those counties that beat us is because they have incinerators and they get it. Their credit is figured differently. So to be one of the counties that does nothing but the way we do it and be running that rate, that's pretty amazing. That we're there. The scale house, there's 92,000 transactions a year goes over to scale house. The center, you'll see that 350,000 tons, that's what the team landfills actually. The team actually handles 443,000 tons is what they handled last year across the scales. And a lot of that difference between the 350 and the 443, that's coming in and it's going back out to a market somewhere, whether it's tires or e-scrap or scrap metal or yard waste or whatever it is. So a little snapshot there of that. Question?
Hey, Mike, would you mind giving a little frame of reference to the 65% recycling rate? 65% of what?
Everything in Manatee County. It takes about a year to get this number annually because every business in here that is bound to recycle, Kofer Brothers, whoever you want to pick, that are in that recycling game and report that and go for those credits. It takes about a year to gather all that information and get it all assimilated and get it back. I'm on page still, right, Rob? Yeah. I've been out of the solid waste business directly for a little too long now. But I'm on.
So basically, to simplify the numbers, if we had a million tons for the year, 65,000 tons would have been recycled of that million tons.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ball.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mike, I just got a quick question. I remember when we started the recycling and we were concerned, wondering how we could raise that percentage rate. I remember those days. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
65% is awesome at this point. But I'm curious about something. It's always good for Manatee County to have something that we can kind of pat ourselves on the back for. So you mentioned the other counties and how we were 4th or 5th. Is there some way you could get that documentation to us? I think we should
It's a
get
state
that out in the
rep- it's a-
community that, we're doing such a great job on that.
It's a state report that's published, list every county, last
If
one
you
I've
could-
seen, right, Rob?
It's listed with the state. They're the ones that give the final number. I just want to keep everyone in mind with COVID and all the other things and also some of the, I'm sorry, with COVID and some of the other things that have been going on and they've changed the DEP has changed some rules, those numbers could slightly come down. So that doesn't mean we're not doing the same processes and not working towards that goal, but just keep that in mind as we move into the future.
So
Well,
I think
how about
it-
if we-
get the
I'm
press
sorry.
release out sooner than later then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think it'd work
If you could
across
go
the
ahead and
state.
send that information, we can get that out now.
I think what I'm hearing you say, Ms. Ball, is you'd like for us to highlight that we are 4th or whatever.
Commissioner Ball would love that, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, we went from the little carts to the one can. So, and it was quite a challenge, wasn't it? Yes, it was. It still is. Still, some people don't like that in their garage. So, I know. Yeah, especially in where your district's at. So, I can. Yes, ma'am. Y'all built little garages. Well, my ACA, that's another story. Me and you could joke all day about that one. So, okay, so I'm over to Heather's program here, our business program. And besides finance, Heather also handles a lot of other things. She handles our customer service call center. So there's a little number there, how many calls we took last year, and how many emails those folks handled. And Heather, if I remember right, we're probably around 40 or so customer service reps that handle that volume. They're at 66th Street right now. Heather also is over our GIS program and our locating. We locate for not only water and sewer, we locate telemetry, traffic signal for public works and IT. That's all of our own fiber. So that boils down to 71,000 locates a year. And I have misplaced my note. GIS, what that comment is there is part of Heather's team. That reflects 321 as-built. That means 321 projects that came in that our team put into GIS so that anybody going on there to lay a water line, look for their water service, wonder about a fire hydrant, whatever the developer wants for us to use to manage the system to the water meter, they added 321 as-built to our service area. So we're pretty proud of that GIS system. Our warehouse, we have a note here that we're carrying $1 million in inventory. Historically, we carry about $750,000 worth in inventory there. But we run into a lot of problems with supply chains over this last year. Worked with Dr. Hopes on, we thought we was going to run out of residential meters twice. And what we learned out of it was we were on our game. We were using the best supplier in the country. And we had worked with them so long because some of the other suppliers just totally gave out and the rest of the country went to the supplier we were using. But we had the meters in there. We worked out a system that we could still put people in their homes. Even if we didn't have a meter, we was going to estimate and do some calculations so we didn't have to hold back anybody moving in their new home. We've seen it as well, not only on your individual house meters, but also on the developments that are what we call mastered metered, 3-inch meters, 4-inch meters and up, 6-inch meters. We seen that we couldn't even bring a development online because we didn't have a meter and they're so back ordered. Well, we knew that wasn't going to fly. So we worked through a lot of that as well. To our knowledge, nobody went without. We got everybody in and we was able to work through it. But just a little sample of what we're dealing with in the utility, because you can get into every brass part, every 1-inch pipe, every service, every manhole, all that we're struggling to keep stock on. So, and we dropped in there what our operating budget was. Okay. I'll get to that in a little bit. So, because Heather's team manages that, by the way. She is, her and Victor. Of course, FMD is our lead, and of course, they help us with everything and make the major decisions. All we can do is try to watch the money and report to them what's coming and going, and ultimately, they lead us on where we go from there.
Okay, before we move on, Commissioner Whitmore has a question.
It's probably about the warehouse stuff. Ellington, Colony Cove and all that, we're taking over their water system?
No, ma'am.
Or the sewer?
We're replacing a sewer system in Colony Cove.
Okay.
I think I can say it real quick. On the south side of 301, against the river right there, there's a partial of Colony Cove that we own the sewer in and they own the potable water in. And the sewer system was failing drastically. And it was a system that we took on years ago when we built the plant up there because we needed some flows to make that plant work at Buffalo Creek. And over the years, we had found trailers going in over manholes, trailers going in over main lines, and we couldn't service none of that. We couldn't get to it to do it. There was a mobile home sitting on top of it. So we worked with those folks extensively and come up. They gave us the easements in there. We're moving the system out in the road. so that there's no more of that, and we'll have a right-of-way and an easement to it that we can access it and treat it like it ought to be treated. At the same time, their water system that they owned was failing. They are replacing that water system while we do the sewer system so that it's less interruptive to the residents in that community. It's been a difficult deal to put together. Bill's office has helped us drastically with it. Procurement has played a big role in it. It's been a really hard deal to put together originally, but we see it coming to fruition now. So I should have said county attorney. I'm sorry, Bill. Did I answer that? Okay. So if we're on the next. Okay. Challenges. You've heard it from everybody else, but where I'm leading with all this is rising costs, our biggest challenge, as you know, across the whole county. But like I said when I opened up, we don't make a profit. We have a system that we got to maintain to certain regulatory standards and our own standards, and we have to do the things we do. And it takes a certain amount of people to do that. So these costs, living in the year we're in, we didn't expect this inflation last year, where it's gotten to be. So we were struggling with something yesterday, a project come in twice as much as what we expected. Not uncommon, but in this year it is. But we're trying to compete with the labor market. Everything that you've heard in your previous budget sessions, from what I've caught and what you hear everywhere, the costs are just really difficult to get our hands around. We're trying to be smart. We cut out every bell and whistle you will see in the CIP and the operating budget. There's no bells and whistles. It's strictly infrastructure and soldiers. So a little bit about that. The growth at the same time. The FDAB hasn't moved, the service boundary hasn't moved, but we've expanded within that drastically in the areas that we've never been. And that drives trucks, it needs people, it drives more calls in the middle of the night, it drives everything with operating that utility. It drives water quality, you just name it just affects the whole system. So that growth has been hard for us to manage because we got a part of the system that's old that we're trying to replace and fix, and the other part, luckily it's not breaking there, but we're out there sticking meters in the ground. We're out there trying to read the meters, so everything that goes along with it. So I touched on the staffing and the growth there. Lastly, is the storms. As you all know, that's always a challenge for us. It don't have to be a named storm to give us a problem. We can have 2 or 3 days of rain, and the next thing y'all know, you're hearing about a sewer spill in Samoset because it's overwhelmed our collection system because some of our stormwater systems aren't quite what they ought to be. And your sanitary sewer system ends up taking the place of your stormwater system. So then our pump stations can't keep up with it, and the next thing you know, we all know how water quality is these days. We know the Governor DeSantis is very adamant on that, and it's come through our regulatory, through our permits and all. If we have a spill, we're paying for it. We're answering for it. It's not just, oh, it rained. We are certainly answering for it in one way or another, whether it's an in-kind project, whether it's just on paper, whether it's a lot of legwork to answer for what happened and why. But there's not the exceptions anymore for, oh, you had a hurricane. Well, you're allowed to spill sewer during a hurricane. Those days are kind of gone. Good for the country, good for our state, good for our waters, but it's a hard thing to keep up with. We're not advocating for anything different. We try to be as proactive as we can because we're very conscious of the water that we use for so many different things within the utility. So here's a snapshot that I thought was interesting, and for some reason I took this position in July of 13. So everything we always bring to y'all seems to start in 14. I don't know why. That's just what the team and us have always done. But you see the growth in accounts since then. Let me put out a disclaimer because I figured real quick somebody would say that population number is not correct. And I know how debatable that is, but we've always used this as a population to measure against, so that's why we use that 412. I wouldn't doubt it's higher than that. But so the number of accounts increased by 24%. The miles of pipe, I'm sure I don't have to read that to y'all, but that's a snapshot in time of where we are today. So we looked at it, and we just didn't want to over-indate y'all with data. We could have showed you every year, and it's a very similar growth pattern every 2 years with these different, other than population, with these other pieces here.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to stop you because I have Baugh and Bellamy on the board.
I thought I had a few minutes, sorry. Just a couple of questions, Mike, in looking at your percentages here. And I know, I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of growth in the county. We all know that. But just out of curiosity, how much has that increased your revenue per year, the new growth that we're getting? So the new customers that are coming online, it says accounts, it went up 24.1% if I'm reading it correctly.
You are.
Okay.
You are. I didn't anticipate that question, Vanessa. I can help you with it, though, because I get this question a lot, and I might be able to give that to you by the end of the day. It's perhaps, probably by tomorrow. Oh, Heather, do you think we could have that by tomorrow? That's something that we track every month.
Okay.
As it goes. It's not that direct turnaround that you think it would be, because so many residents are seasonal and they're just getting a ready to serve charge. So it's not quite what you would think it would be, as much as what we would hope it would be. Actually, rain season, dry season plays a bigger role in that cash flow than actually adding accounts. But we will find that. I will find a history on that for you, and
Okay.
if you'd like for
And
me
then
to get it to the whole board, that's fine.
Yeah, the whole board, I think,
Okay.
probably would love to have that. And then the next one, Mike, looking at the collection miles, 23 point, this is really good information here, by the way. I'm curious, though, and I don't build homes, so I don't know all the ins and outs. I've built a home, but not in this state. When the developer goes in and they're putting in, don't they put in the sewer lines into
Yes, ma'am.
neighborhoods and
Yes,
all
ma'am.
that? How about in lift stations, too?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So at least, the good news is, if there is any, that when we have a lot of growth, a lot of this stuff is being put in already. So we're
yes,
not
ma'am.
having to spend the money to do it.
That's the whole idea.
Is that
of
correct?
Growth paying for itself. Yes.
Well, I realize that, then it gets
Utility,
turned
yeah.
over eventually to Manatee County, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Yes, most of them develop it. They're knowledgeable enough to know that they don't want to own a utility system because it's a bad investment. But yes, it gets turned over to us. This is reflecting what we're maintaining, what
So,
we're operating and
Okay,
maintaining.
I guess my last question, because I'm just trying to, obviously we need to look at this because we have had a lot of growth. But I'm glad that at first, at least, it's not hitting us too hard for the new growth that we're seeing. But here's my question on an average, and I don't know if you'll know this or not, but out where I am, I've dealt a lot with neighborhoods that have been turned over to the county.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through that now in a lot of areas of Lakewood Ranch. So just out of curiosity, on an average, do you know how many years it generally is before a neighborhood comes in, like Country Club East, and says, it's time for us to turn it over to the county. We want to turn over our utilities. Is there kind of an average length of time that it generally seems to happen? I know that's a crazy question, but
I think
I got a reason for
I'm
it.
going to take a shot, and then I've got a couple of gurus here with me. But I think my first answer would be, once the developer has no play in it no more, and there's enough of the units gone that it's turned over to the HOA. I think would be my answer, is what a lot of them would like to do now. But many of them are
Many of
way
them didn't
past
do that.
Way past that.
Yes.
Okay, but everybody gets a little smarter as they go. Jeff, any comment on that?
No, I think it varies depending on the neighborhood. Usually they come when something breaks. That's usually when we hear about it, and they start, hey, we didn't know we owned this, and how come you're not taking care of this for us? And that's when the dialogue starts.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was on a Zoom call the other day. I'm not going to tell you where. And yeah, they said that they wanted to talk to me about that because I was like the mayor of Lakewood Ranch, and I could tell you, I said, oh no, because I know what comes with this. You know, I've done it now how many times, you know.
We've come a long way, though, and you might remember we'd done a presentation prior to 4 of the board members here, or 3, I'm sorry, about a system we had built in place for transferring those private utilities, whereas before we had no system. And we've been planning to put that in front of you again, but we've been using it with some of the folks wanting to transfer. And to date, they seem very receptive. It's a whole lot better than what it was. And we give them credit. We give in this system that we've got, we give them credit for what's good in there, and we discredit what is bad. But it's a whole lot better than saying you got to bring it all up to today's standards. And they've been pretty receptive to it because obviously we don't want to pay for a system that's 30 years old. So it's complicated, but yet it's not complicated, and we're getting good feedback. I think I know who you're talking about.
I love hearing that because that hasn't. How long have we been doing that? Where
we are just wetting our feet with it.
Oh,
we are
that's
just
really
wetting
good
our
to
feet
hear.
with it to see how it is accepted, how it's looking to folks if we was to go that route.
We're only about, 8 to 9 months into it now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and
We've only shown it, I think, to 2 groups.
Two.
Bet I know one of them.
You do know
Yes,
one
you
of
do.
them.
to know
And I
one.
think
Yeah.
I think you got an email
They come back
today
to life with
on an
this.
update.
Thank you.
So yeah, no, it has taken a lot of work, and our goal is to get some of this caught up so that at the time the developer turns it over to the HOA, it's part of that turnover process rather than trying to do this decades after the handover.
Yeah, I don't know if I should. I'm not going to go into this, but Mike, would you get with me on the Lake Club, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you, ma'am.
exactly, because I didn't
Commissioner
say,
Bellamy.
but
You were on the board, sir.
Yeah, I actually forgot because I've been there for a minute. But here's what my thought was. With the growth and everything that you're seeing, are you having any challenges within hiring like everybody else is?
It's terrible.
I'm just curious. I mean,
I risk saying it or not saying it. Half the utility, half the staff will qualify for dirty jobs that show that they do. I mean, it's a tough business. But I tell you, we've had a lot of support out of the administration. Dr. Hopes, he has been very open to us having problems and bringing them to him. I just spoke this morning. I understand he's still open to that. We've been working on those tough positions, Commissioner, that we see as a problem, and they're them frontline soldiers. They are our sewer guys, our water guys out there with a shovel around the clock. They don't got they're stuck breaking all the time. It's our pay scale ain't where it should be there. Our CSRs, our customer service reps, we're way below where we should be. And everybody knows it. We just been trying to put a cost plan in effect that we could try to correct it. So
yeah, and I think the reason why I said I think myself and Commissioner Ball's on the same page where I was going. And again, the challenges are to Dr. Hopes about the salaries. And this has nothing to do with the budget, but 4 or 5 nights ago, there was some of your workers on 29th Street in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, and I actually went down there and spoke to them and offered them a Pepsi. I didn't offer anything else. But tell them thanks for everything that they were doing in the middle of the night. But I asked them some of those same questions, like, hey, it gets rough sometimes. And again, that's employee morale, but what can we do from our perspective, or collectively, the board, shall I say, as far as looking at that, so you can have those competitive salaries, so wherever that need is, we can cross that bridge. And I'm sure the challenge is to Dr. Hope. So.
No, and we've been working on it, and it's built into the budget presentation to you. In addition to that, we discussed this morning, have had some incredibly positive meetings with Economic Opportunity and the Workforce Florida, and we're going to be rolling out in Public Works and Utilities an apprenticeship program. Which has a number of entities coming together, paid apprenticeship with MTC, as well as the Department of Economic Opportunity with the state, and we expect it to be very effective.
Good job.
I appreciate you asking, and I appreciate the comments. There are more people watch this when we're here. Our little team is tight, and I'm just so. The utilities department, I tell you, I know I'm a little prejudiced, but I just won't want to work nobody else. I see families there. Just last week we hired two of our folks' child. She reached the age to work. That's a good message to me. And so it's an open door, right? Dr. Hope's allowing us to throw what we think we need at him, and he's having to do what he has to do as an administrator. But very open arms for that. I appreciate you asking.
And Mike's right. He's done a great job. I mean, we have employees in utilities who are encouraging their children who are in high school and coming out of high school to come to work for the county before they even graduate from high school. And I've met a number of them, and it's pretty exciting to see that. It really is.
It can get a little difficult because if somebody wants a promotion, you got to make sure you don't have anything happening there. But it's well worth it. That I guess they've watched their parents make a living there, and they're just not cut out. Some of them are there part time. We've done the where they come in the summer and work and get them ready to go to college thing and all that. Just anything we can do. I got a great HR manager over there. He's not here today because obviously this is not his forte, but he has helped us tremendously with that as well.
Wait, before we move on, Commissioner Whitmore, I sent you a young buck, by the way, and he's still working for you.
You do?
And very happy.
I got
So-
a couple from you.
That's
by the
right,
way.
and
They've
they're
used
still
your
there
name.
and
Yeah.
happy. So Commissioner Whitmore is on the board.
Well, they worked under this coach, so if they can work under him, they probably can work under you guys.
You're a walk in the park.
What I was going to bring up is, I know doctors and the hospitals and all, because you can't get anybody to work nights or anything, and they give them a specific bonus when they get called in, and that's an incentive. I'm sure you thought about that, but, you get on-call pay, but, I've reported to this board, actually, I've seen it twice. One guy got injured in a hole, but had blood, lacerated forehead, and he still wouldn't get out of the hole, fixing a sewer line. But have you thought about some kind of incentive?
Well,
Because it's night shift that's hard to
we deal
cover.
with an annual. We haven't thought about an incentive for working. Well, yes, I guess I could say we have talked about one for after hours like that, but that's part of what we're going to propose and what we're going to show Dr. Hope's is a little different incentive there. But it's
Get up in the middle of the night out of a dead sleep. You got to get in your truck. You got to be on the spot. You got to weld. You got to be in water, bacteria, all that junk. At least to show that we at least appreciate it. And that's how you cut your teeth in this world. And it's good to be reimbursed for your hard work and recognized. And maybe you won't have problems covering night shift all over the 810 square miles.
It's a struggle, I tell you, but we got a great team, and you get them ones in there that buy in, and obviously it's a little bit of a younger person's world because it's like testosterone is flowing with who can make it and who can't. But yes, so operating budget, was that it, Chair?
Yes, sir. That's no one else on the board.
All right, so with that, this is our operating budget total that was up there, yes, for the year. And that's just operating. With that, what I thought I would do is I watched last week as y'all went through the decision units with each department. So I was just going to throw up the 4 programs there and show you the decision units for each program and let you see what we're asking for is desired. And walk you through that a little bit. Heather, if you would. So this first one is 2301. This is the potable water side. This is Mr. Morse's group right there. And you will see 13 desired units there total, and 7 of which are positions, which are all frontline soldiers, might I add. Not to get down in the weeds, but these positions that Kevin is hiring are all wrapped around the water plant and what we're doing out there, moving from a sand filter, media filter operation to the filters that we have. And I always lose track of the number. Kevin, 360 pneumatic valves have been added to handle this filter media. Each one of them has a solenoid. A lot better water treatment, a lot state-of-the-art, but a lot of maintenance. And if we let it go, if we drag our feet and don't stay ahead of it and don't get a team in there that can manage this facility, because it's a lot different than the days of old. It's a lot more technical. We're going to get a lot more out of it overall, but we want to get ahead of it. We plan to bring that thing online. I think substantial completion is in October, correct, Kevin? So we'll be fully online by then. We're planning to have in my world, I'd call it a gathering, but I'm from the South. I guess a gala event of some type out there to get y'all all out there and see what we've built. We're always willing to show y'all now, but so that these positions are driven by that. I wanted to highlight our chemical cost increase. We've seen that on water and wastewater. That is just over and above is why it's listed as desired. It's fit into our base, our normal cost. But this FMD had suggested, being it was so significant, that we show it as a desired unit here, how much over what our normal cost have been. All part of this inflation and supply chain issues, correct, Kevin, Jeff? Little highlight there of meters that I alluded to earlier. We're stocking a lot more of them. And the value of them and the demand for them across the country, because we're not the only county or city growing like this. There's a lot of the country growing like this with a high demand. So we're trying to keep enough on hand and accommodate the price increase there. So just thought I'd highlight those two. Questions? Not, I'll move on to wastewater. All right, the next one here is wastewater. We had 7 desired units and five of those positions. Those positions, two of those positions wrap around lift stations group, and 2 of them wrap around our collections, our wastewater collections group. All of them were funded, so we're very appreciative of that.
Okay, Mr. Gore, before we go too much further, sort of latecomers to your question. Does anyone have a question? Satcher and then Whitmore.
Sorry, Mr. Gore. I've just been thinking about this and where the best place to bring this up. So you're on potable water, or you were a minute ago. So this might be the best spot. When it comes to the filtration, the new system, bringing it online, which you said October is the plan on that.
Yes, sir. We've got two units online now, and there's a series of units. So by October, half of that plan will be running through these these other filters.
2 out of 20, 2 out of 5.
12 is it 12, Kevin? 12.
2 out of 12.
So we kind of have a proof of concept. We have a 1/6 of this thing up and going.
Oh, yeah.
And the water coming out of it is better water than what we were getting before. The plan is working. A 1/6 of the way done. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's I mean, so that was going to be my main crux, is I was going to say, how can we set up something? I was going to come up with some incentives to October. If that's our goal, let's figure out. We'll give you a bonus or something. But I mean, I just say that because I don't want to spoil the party, but I'm pretty sure that I remember the kind of 6 months out has been, and I'm getting close to 2 years in this position.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the project got behind.
Right.
I mean, I would not stand here and tell you it didn't. It didn't come at an extra cost for getting behind. It got behind because of supply-related issues and labor issues with the contractor. We love the contractor. This piece. I think I can say the name, PCL. Great contractor. They have just done great quality work, but they went through the same things through COVID and trying to keep and retain help and deal with. So that set the program back, and then supply issues set the program back. At one point, we were stalled just because we couldn't find painters. Am I recollecting right, Kevin? We could not find painters to paint the bays where these filters set in. That's how bad it was. And I mean, you would think, but and then we run into some other issues issues. The plant was 50 years old. We noticed some stuff in there. In hindsight, when we got in there, the bays where the water carries, we was seeing some erosion in there on some of them bays. And if you get any concrete in there, you stand to mess up these expensive filters. So we ended up having to retrofit some liners in there, some stainless steel liners. So there's some good reasons, but our cost hasn't driven up because of it. So
Just the
we're online now.
timeline because of the labor and the shortage of supplies with the, okay.
Yes, sir. We had
And
a
that makes a
bad
lot of
in-
sense. The whole world experienced that for, during this whole pandemic thing. So that makes, that sets me at ease. So, and it's also very encouraging to me to know that it's 1/6 up and going and producing good, clean water. And then by October, we expect to be 6 out of 12, is that right?
No, 12 of the 12.
12 out of
We had
12.
a little tobacco yesterday. One fell off the forklift and fell into pieces. And I don't think, these things have to stay, I could let Kevin tell the story, but they have to stay in cold storage. They cannot, they're very, Kevin, you want to give a few minutes of it for their?
Sure. So the ultrafilter modules are packed in glycerin. They're shipped in glycerin. So it has the ability to keep them sanitized, but also works like antifreeze. These are actually manufactured in Toronto and shipped down here. So as Mr. Gore indicated, they got 4 of them off the truck yesterday, and the 5th one tipped off of the forklift. And so that was distressing to all of us. So we will for sure have 11 of them up and running in October, and hopefully the lead time on that one that they broke, when they have to replace it. They broke it, so hopefully that won't be too long.
Well, yeah, and I won't be upset about 11 out of 12. I won't be
Good.
upset.
I'm gonna hold you
And
that.
Just one other. I'm sorry to spend too much, but as far as the total water output, first of all, I recognize that we're talking really primo. This is going to be some really clean water that we're going to be giving to our citizens that they're going to be drinking. So I'll point that out. But then as far as volume, how much volume increase versus where we are now to when this was fully on, or actually pretend like this is not online at all, and then it comes online, it increases our volume of water output by?
I don't think we see a capacity increase in what we can treat.
Okay.
What we see with this is
Quality.
well, definitely quality. It's gonna, this system can catch stuff in the water that is not even measurable yet by most standards, and some of it is that the sand media wouldn't have got. And this is kind of where the trend is going to. And we're hoping, and it should be a little bit more efficient to operate. Is where we're at with it. But regulatory permitting drove us here, because as it gets tighter, what we have to clean the water, what levels to, staff was able ahead of me to see what was coming with that, and we're watching it come to fruition to the levels in the water. Is that right, Kevin?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And one of the things we didn't anticipate was microplastics. So microplastics are a really increasing concern in a lot of industries. One report I saw recently said that there are 8 million microfragments of plastic in every cubic meter of seawater. But one thing we know for sure is the ultrafilters will absolutely remove all of those particles. There's even microplastics in some bottled waters. So it's throughout the developed world that we're in. A micron is a millimeter divided by 1,000, and the human eye can see down to about 40 microns, and the conventional dual media filters Mr. Gore talked about can remove particles down to about 5 microns. These ultrafilters will remove particles 250 times smaller than that. They will remove particles so small they will remove bacteria and even some viruses. That's how discriminating and precise they are. So I don't know if 6-7 years ago when we embarked on this path towards this improvement in filtration technology, we were aware of microplastics, but it turned out to be the right decision for that. As a matter of fact, Peace River, where I came from, for their next expansion, they are actually considering ultrafilters over dual media filtration for their next expansion. So they're following our lead.
Okay. All right.
You ask an engineer a question, you get an engineer's answer.
I appreciate
That's
it, and it's a lot
proud
of people's.
employee. He's good to go.
It's been a big investment and a lot of time, and so I'm glad that we are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, and that it's going to be a worthwhile payoff. So that's exciting to hear. So thank you, Mr. Gore.
Thank you. So if we move on to.
Well, we have Commissioner Whitmore still.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You know, I voted for this, so I was going to talk about it. Clash, and I think Getman were in office then. And the reason why we were at one point going to be the largest in the United States, and then with all the length it took, we were the third largest in the United States. But the reason why we did this was the biohazardous chemicals trying people to destroy our water system. And I remember at one point it could filter AIDS viruses, et cetera, other bacterias, fleshy, all that kind of stuff. So we were going to be the best. And the ultrafiltration, I can't believe it's finally here. And
We still are the best.
Yeah, I know, but we're the best. It was like $8 million to start out with, and now I think it's like $80 million that we've spent.
No, 50
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
Tell me the numbers.
I think, was it 50, Kevin?
50 million?
Or are we up to 66? Well,
Okay, it's cheaper than.
$66 million total. And at the same time, you may recall, we're upgrading our SCADA, our supervisory
Right.
control and data acquisition system, for another $7 million. So altogether, about $75 million worth of improvements at the water treatment plant.
And I hope, and I know you guys will do something, because we have worked so many years on this, and I appreciate you guys have been around since day one on most of this, and I appreciate all your work. Going to lift stations regarding hurricanes. During our last storm events, we had to rent them. We have a standby with a company or something. And at one point, that was a hard time. I think in 2017, I saw this thing about lift stations. Can you assure us during a environmental disaster or something that we'll have access to enough portable lift stations for our system? I know you turn the water off at certain points.
Yeah, I believe you're talking about generators.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the lift
I am.
stations.
I am,
And
sorry.
because that's usually our problem,
Right.
is power. Our lift stations, we got some pretty tough utility standards, and we have as you'll see, quite a program there. So it's really about the volume of water and power, and I mean, if it's underwater, then there's really no place to pump it to, and if we don't have power. But we have invested in a lot of bypass pumps, because they're just easier to manage instead of generators and dealing with that piece of it. A little easier to mobilize that stuff. So, you have, as we've said before, you got to draw that line at what value is it worth having that asset to maintain that piece of the system. So, was that
I think that's it, sir. You're ready.
Okay. I'm sorry. So if I move over to solid waste, we have a code enforcement. We have 6 decision units in one position. The code enforcement officer, those, if you're not familiar with that name, because the county is so full of code enforcement officers, we have a group there in solid waste that works as a liaison between the customer, the hauler, and obviously ourselves. So we've been stretched pretty thin on that. We try to break it. We've had 4 positions. This will make a 5th. Each position basically takes care of a quarter of the county, basically 35,000 customers. So this will get us back down to about 26,000 accounts for each solid waste enforcement officer. So, and with implementing potentially a new collection program, we have drug our feet on adding this, waiting for a franchise agreement to start, because we envisioned a lot of change with a new franchise agreement. So that position will help there. The big one there is very, very big, the waste hauler carts program. What that is us positioning ourselves for this program. We don't know where we will land, but as we had met, Dr. Hopes, myself, our solid waste consultant, Rob, we recognize that if we was to move to an automated program, that we could probably purchase carts cheaper than we could pay a waste hauler for them. So that is a placeholder more than anything. We don't know where we're going to land, but it gives us bargaining and negotiating power there to see where we would come out better if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, with purchasing them, the carts have what, a 15-year warranty?
I believe it's 15.
They're a 15-year warranty, which is the life of the contract with the new waste haulers, and it's a substantial savings to the taxpayer if we buy them up front rather than pay for them through the waste hauler. It's millions of dollars in savings. And then also call your attention to the almost $2 million compactor. If you haven't seen this sucker working to tear up a sailboat, you got to go out there and watch this piece of equipment because it's pretty impressive.
Yes, what I'm more proud of is that compactor we're replacing we bought in 2010. It's 12 years old. Staff has really over the years learned how to manage this equipment much better. We've been in buyback programs. We've been in rebuild programs. We work closely with Fleet, which is under Chad, Public Works, and we try to manage the market the best. We have 2 of them. The other one's an 08, Rob? So it's even older, but we had gotten out of the buyback program because we could see we was getting took a little bit on that. That program started going south, and we got into rebuilding. So it's finally due to replace. And this comes with all new GIS, GPS equipment, and I think I've, on our tours, talked to y'all about the GPS equipment in there. So that's where that's at. Questions? All right, lastly, the Business Operations Group, 4 decision units. The locate technician, I talked earlier about the locates and a little bit about that. Each locator's doing 30 to 50 a day. Believe it or not, that comes out to about 10 to 12,000 per year. We have currently 8 locators and a supervisor, and we have 1 locator that we contract because it's so hard to get people to come in and do this. And we have a loaner from our wastewater department that's helping the locators live right now. So it's a really difficult position to keep people in. These folks are running hard all day long. They got to get to know the contractors. They got to try to chase them along. They got to know, because you got 48 hours to respond to a request, plus you have all your line breaks. So they try to work with the contractors to know, okay, you're going to work from here to, you're going to work these 3 city blocks this week. That's what I'm going to locate, and I'll be back next week to locate the next 3. That's how, so that's the position there for that. There was 2 that weren't funded. We're fine with this. One of them was the new hire incentives. We certainly can work within our budget to work with that. We was going to try to highlight emergency events, and that is line breaks and stuff. I'll remind you of the 36-inch line break across the river. I'll remind you of the one in the middle of 70. We was attempting at this time just to try to start breaking those out to get a handle on where they were, but we're fine without them as we are. So the last one was the credit card fees. So any questions?
Commissioner Whitmore.
It kind of messed me up. This is where we could flag things if we want you to look at it. Right, Mr. Administrator? Okay, I'm worried about the line breaks, especially 70 in the river, because those were kind of catastrophic, and it's better to be proactive. Could we just look at adding 1?
Yeah, I'm that's what kind of
I
want
know
to
you're
touch.
okay with it, but I was going to see if,
We are funded to do it. This was just a mechanism to set up an account key, and Heather, you might want to speak to it, just so we could better track it.
Okay,
The dollars
tracking.
for it, so we're not sitting here saying we don't
The
have it.
money's there.
The money's there.
Okay,
With the year prior, we had spent $426,000 on these outside these kind of flukes, because we have line breaks every day, but
Right,
these
right.
larger ones that had mounted to almost $500,000. So staff was going to try to create it, but we're fine. I'm not asking for more, but I appreciate it, Commissioner.
are you okay?
Yeah,
Mr.?
I mean, they have funds to cover these type of emergencies. It was more looking at a different sort of strategy, and that's something that we just need to look at a little bit differently.
And I think from the board's perspective, we're not going to fault you when something like that happens that's unforeseeable. You need to understand you've got to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean,
It was a budgeting tool, Commissioner. You know what I mean? Just something so that next year when we're building that budget, what we're to try to nail down where it was.
Yes, sir. Any other commissioners on board? Go ahead, Commissioner Ball.
Mike, maybe I missed it, I'm sorry. But down at the bottom of this, administrative function, including department director, almost 22 million, what is that?
That is the entire program. That is
Program.
Heather, her locators, that is the customer service reps, that is the transfers in and out. Heather, do you want to speak to that?
Well, Mike makes a lot more than you think he does.
Evidently.
like-
That's what
Or
I'm
is that
thinking.
20 million or something?
Yeah, almost 22.
You complain about me, but I mean,
I wouldn't even know how to
Need the
count.
inspector general on that one.
It's the whole program, Commissioner. So that includes what we transfer in a P-lot, all that. So payment in lieu of taxes, franchise fees that we pay, all that comes out of this program, the administrators.
it's a decision unit. It's a very large decision unit.
A very large decision. That's why it got my attention. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Capital improvement.
Way to go, Heather. Good answer.
All right, so if everybody's good, then I'll just move over to our CIP program.
Well, not so fast. Commissioner Satcher, late arrival.
So maybe this would get to the issue. So on that's a very large decision unit, 21,958.
22.
Okay, so basically 22 million.
Yeah.
I think one thing that might give us a handle on it would be to say, if you were to include everything that's included in that decision unit, looking at last year's budget, how much did it change? And then if it,
Okay.
so,
I'm not sure
and if
I
you don't
can
have that on
give you
hand, I
that
understand.
right now, but we might could by the end of the meeting. I don't know if we have that background data with us or not. Sheila may be able to drag that up for us.
Yeah, that might give us just so we can look apples to apples and
there's
say,
a
okay.
lot in there
And we
to it.
understand right now inflation. We understand everybody coming in has a higher budget than they had last year.
Right.
But maybe give us a
It
better
should be
look at
close
it.
to the same because that's their base. That's
what
their
I asked.
base starting point, and there was nothing added to it. So,
Great.
Sheila.
Last year, this decision unit had a $20.2 million budget, so it went up like around million.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ball,
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Gore.
Ready for some CIP? Okay. So we broke this down a little bit because, y'all get so much put on you with the whole CIP. So we just tried to break it down a little bit so you had an idea over your water and your wastewater and your solid waste, what was going out year to year and what those expenses were. So this is a snapshot of it. So is there any questions with it is, I guess, what I would ask. Well, this is what ma'am.
I said, I don't know if I have any questions.
Well, this is the CIP for the potable water program, 2301, which we talked. Okay, so this is how much we're slated to spend each year in capital improvement projects for each one of those programs. So I didn't know, this is just a snapshot, so you got an idea. I assumed the one in wastewater in 23, y'all would go, my gosh, what are you spending $116 million on? That is a half of that right out of the gate, 66 million of it. Correct, Jeff? I know, but
Don't worry, it's coming.
But while you're ahead,
am I talking too much? I think I'm talking too much. I know y'all probably
they have
wanna go home.
they have the detailed book. They have the detailed book.
We've got the books too, so if you want to look. But big part of that is a plant capacity improvement at Southeast wastewater plant. Yes, ma'am. Your neck of the woods.
Is that all, Commissioner Ball? Yes. Okay, Commissioner Serbia.
Yes, and so the FIF fees, the facility investment fees cover the capital improvement program. You say yes, you say no. So
Well, and the
please-
bonding that we'll be going out for.
And the bonding as part of the,
I got another slide that I think will help
okay.
you with that.
All right, thank you.
So quick glance at how many projects there are existing, how many new projects there are, and what the total is in this 5-year CIP period right there. If you printed yourself a copy of this from your home computer yesterday, no? It's corrected, Heather? Okay, we had two numbers that were a little off, but the total is still the same. You might have one that says 95 and 43 instead of 96 and 42. All right, so this next one, and she left. This next slide shows what is funding those capital improvement projects through each fiscal year, whether it is rates or FIFs or debt proceeds or the line of credit. I think y'all heard a little bit about the line of credit yesterday. I think you was informed that we plan to go out to bond $203.8 million. If you look at this example, that $203 million we plan to go out and borrow comes from the line of credit, and in 23 you'll see 104.7 and 50.9. You add those two to the line of credit, and that amounts to what we plan to bond and that will carry us through those years.
And part of the bond proceeds will pay off the $48 million on the line of credit.
Commissioner Whitmore.
George mentioned something about this yesterday. So we're taking an $80 million line of credit out. We're using 48 of it towards this, correct?
The utilities
Sheila,
was a-
right?
the-
Okay. And then what about the debt proceeds? Tell me what that means. The 104 and the 50 million.
That's the bonding,
Yeah.
the long-term debt.
So that's what we'll have to pay
That's
every
what you
year to pay
authorized
up
us to
for
get the
bonds?
consultants to work on, correct?
So that's the interest we'll have to pay or whatever, Scott or somebody?
Well, it's a 203, they're planning a $203.8 million bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And of the proceeds from that bond, the line of credit up to the 50 million will be paid off. The 48.2 will be paid from the bond proceeds. That's why you see the net of the 163.8 at the end.
And we're keeping the 80 million no matter what. We're going to keep that in place for future
The
issues.
utilities has a $50 million line of credit.
Yeah. Oh, so
The 80 million is on the other side
on
of
the
the
other
house.
side, and then we have this line of credit. I think I remember this yesterday. This has been established for a while, right? Okay, sorry.
That's what allowed them to get the projects advanced and get started.
So with that,
Commissioner Satcher's waving his. He waits for you to start talking. I'm telling
all
you.
right, it's all right.
That's how he gets everybody's attention.
I'm enjoying it.
You probably already said this, but just clarify for me. I believe that we've said that there's a relatively large project coming to fix the dam. Is that in this CIP, and if so, where?
I think the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about that if you want.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Because I caught that yesterday, Commissioner, and I knew that today we was going to try to clarify a little bit of that. So what we done, can you flip me? The next piece I'm going to talk about, those are the pages in the budget book, 327 through 334. We didn't know if you'd be working out of a budget book or not, or want to reference it. So what we thought we would do is highlight a few of our bigger projects that we hear about from y'all and we get questions about, and things that are happening for each one of the programs. So the first one is the water treatment plant. I think we've talked a lot about the membrane project and the ultrafiltration. I think we covered that. So I'll skip the alum sludge right now just to get to your question, Commissioner, if that's okay. The Lake Manatee Dam repairs. What we have going on right now is we just received 2 bid proposals. We got 2 numbers for the downstream repair of that spillway. As you know, we've replaced the core in the dam itself, and what we're focused on now is the spillway. And I believe that Dr. Hopes yesterday told y'all that we was having, for lack of better words, peer review, a second look at what we had planned to do on that whole structure. We pushed it out because the bids that we were getting, it's a very entailed project, and they were just through the roof and not complete. And working with our engineers, they said the inflow side is safe. It's the downstream side that you need to go ahead and get something done with. That's where we're having the piping effect from the high raise in the river and it coming back up under and undermining it. So we all agreed that day that let's get this downstream side done, and we're coming in within budget, believe it or not. We had one quote that was twice what our budget was of the two quotes, so that's how far apart they were. But we have a lot of confidence in the company that bid it. They've worked with us the whole time through it, so we're going to work on that downstream side. Kevin, we're right now, procurement's reviewing those bids, I believe.
That's
before
right.
They come to us.
Procurement's still doing their due diligence, and when they're finished with that, the engineer will then dig into it. But the engineer's estimate for the downstream portion was 17 million. We're below that.
Well, yeah. When is it due to start?
We're expecting it to be awarded here in the next 6 or 8 weeks.
Okay, good enough. So that'll get the downstream side. Y'all don't got to sweat the upstream side. And we're going to do as Dr. Hopes had said. We've already got a group on board. We're very impressed with them. These folks have worked on some dams, multiple dams across the country and the world, and they're already bringing stuff to the table that, this is just in the crafting of a work assignment for them to look at how if it's worth repairing or replacing, and everything that goes along with that. Good enough. The other project there was the alum sludge. That's something that you're going to see probably before long. It's out and it's being engineered now, so I'm not quite sure when we would be back in front of you. That is all the beds for the alum that we use in the treatment process. They're located on the south side of Dam Road in that parcel over there. I believe I've had most of you over there. It butts up to the piece that Mr. Neal is working on out there that just got approval. You see it on your maps when you're looking at it.
Makes a very unique view. Not many communities offer that view.
Yeah, I know.
Sludge, alum sludge.
We're going to fix that. This fixes it.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that cool? This fixes it. We're going to keep the ponds as a backup measure. But this gets us down to a couple of units that are basically the size of this right here, and that sludge is mechanically dried, and it'll go on a truck and go out. So the hills of sludge should disappear. It should be just a couple of nice ponds over there that they won't pay any mind other than the ducks flying in and out of them with a little bit of luck. And this is a lot more bulletproof. We had outgrown those ponds. It would have cost more to build more ponds than to go mechanical drying on this. So, and they're a quiet unit, so we're not anticipating any issues there. So if we move over to wastewater, a few projects here, like Jeff's got none, So we just thought we'd highlight the cloth filter. That is a bigger project. Jeff kind of looked at everything that was over $5 million, right, Jeff? Is where he's at with it. So just kind of picked them out. You recently had approved some work in there, I believe, Jeff, wasn't we in front of the board? And they approved, this is one of the ones we went around with, right? A little bit explaining the cloth filter. Or is this an older one, newer one? You don't recall. So this will improve plant capacity, so to speak. Jeff don't like me to use the word plant capacity. It's filter capacity. We can get more product through this filter, but it doesn't improve the capacity of the plant. But everything that we improve piece by piece is just what we should be doing from a regulatory standpoint and how they rate us. So we got a SCADA renewal in there. SCADA is very important to all the plants. If you know much about SCADA, you know that's what the world we live in anymore when it comes to anything like this. And rehab of a storage pond. The SCADA is about $7.3 million. I got a note here, and $5.1 million on the rehab of a storage pond. So just wanted y'all to know we're putting money back into your plants to keep them up. That's now we move over here to the southeast plant. That's the big one that we mentioned earlier, the $66 million, that capacity improvement at that plant. And when that is complete, that'll get us from 11 million to 14.5 million a day as far as being able to treat wastewater. That's a big improvement. That'll carry us out to the year 2050 according to our master plan projections. Before we need our last, we only got one more planned after that, Jeff. We're ready to tell them what we'll do by then, right? Yeah, after 2050. We're not going to be around, are we? Yeah. So the clarifier, that's 5.9 million. The new reject pond, that's 2.7 million. Just to give you an idea of what we're putting in the plant. The North Regional Plant, electrical upgrade there because everything's just obsolete. I shouldn't say everything is obsolete. Most of it is old. A lot of it is obsolete. Most of it is inefficient. We can't get parts for it no more. So that's a large project to the tune of $18.8 million. The skater replacement up there is $5.2 million. So that's a quick snapshot of that. We wanted to highlight in the next page here the number of projects we have in water distribution, 23 projects to the tune of $45.2 million, 20 projects in the collection system. That is just the lines that flow by gravity in your force mains. There's 20 projects there to the tune of $80 million. I wanted to point out lift stations because I said something about this earlier, because y'all hear the most about lift stations. 726 lift stations in the system now. We're adding 15 to 16 a year to our inventory to operate and maintain, thanks to the growth. You see that rehab is to the tune of $38 million for 9 of them to rehab them. They're very expensive to keep up with. So, and that comes, that fixing these, that's not an FIF function. That's out of rates and revenues. So potable water, I don't know if I need to read this to you or not, but you see where we're at with the number of projects we're doing and the cost there. $47.5 million for 14 projects in potable, and wastewater is $24.2 million for 10 projects. This is transportation related. This is, mostly DOT projects related. A lot of times we don't have much heads up on this. A lot of times we don't know this is coming, but when we build roads and widen roads, our utilities are in the way and they need to be moved or replaced or whatever it may be. And a lot of times they don't know that till they get down to actually engineering the roadway and seeing where everything's at. So it kind of comes to us late, and a lot of these type of projects is where we used to spend our reserves at to cover that imbalance. That would cover us. So it's a little bit of a challenge now, as we can't, historically, this is funded by rates and FIFs. Depending on what the line is doing that we're replacing or installing. So just kind of wanted to point that out to you. Questions? All right, so lastly was the solid waste. You see, if you look, there's only 4 projects, 3 of them being gas expansion. Sheila spoke to it yesterday, had a total number of 7 in there. For the 3 projects that carries us out to 26, that's regulatory driven, because we got to keep up with odors and what have you, and surface emissions off of that landfill site. The other one was the new landfill site that you see in there. I think we've spoke to that being a placeholder as we're trying to figure out where we're doing that at. Questions? Okay.
All right. The order of the board is Cruz, Whitmore, Servia.
This is quick. Do we know when we're going to know when we're doing a new landfill and where? I mean, I know we had a timeline because it was, a 10-year process for permitting. And
yeah, it's going to take most of the time to do it, but we've got some sites selected, but I'm going to be honest with you, Commissioner, them sites are moving so fast. And people are buying land up, and so we have not settled on a site yet of what we have selected, but we have sites selected, and that's where that number comes. We have sites selected to work with the owners on, And we have a couple other options in the hopper as well.
What's the realistic outside date where we have to have this selected to have time to go through the permitting and get this set up so we're not running out of capacity?
They would tell you it's about an 18 to 20 year if you just go in and try to site a new landfill before you can.
Understood,
actually
but we
landfill
know
it.
what our remaining life is of our
We do.
existing.
We're right there on the
And
number.
we know the rough timeline. So I'm just asking you, what's our deadline of having selected an actual site before people buy? Like, when do you anticipate coming back to us and saying definitively, this is where we're moving the landfill, now we can start the process?
We have
I would-
about 12 months of negotiations. We've got a number of sites that have been identified with the consultants. And so we're looking at probably within about 12 months identifying a proposed site for you and then moving through the acquisition, the permitting process. One of the options that we have would require a little bit less time for the permitting because of the entity that we'd be dealing with and their experience with permitting. But it's best that we have one-on-one meetings because obviously we're going after about 1,000 acres of property.
Yeah, we're going after 1,000 acres of disposal cell. We're actually going after 3,000 acres total for a buffer. So it's I think y'all spoke about it yesterday. I think Commissioner Satcher was all over this yesterday about how you talk about when you're trying to do this, how much can we talk about? And we just that's where we're at. So another question.
Whitmore, Servia, Bellamy. Commissioner Whitmore.
Yeah, and we can't because we don't want to inflate the prices from some of them that we're looking at, and we all know that. The only thing that we would like to know is, as commissioners, is I think we have 20 years left on our landfill.
Yes, ma'am.
And if we added that extra cell, we added another 2 years or something like that, 22 years of that, the 20 acres, if we had to do it.
That was if we didn't use all of that cell.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then 10 years for a permit, and then,
No, it's the old thing. By the time you do geological, do all those studies, figure out what you're permitting, what you're doing, it's a 18 to 20 year process.
Okay.
There's not been a landfill sited in the state in how long, Rob? 30 years?
Yeah, 25 years or
Okay.
so.
25 years. The really great thing, the advantage for us, what sites we're seeing, we went into this knowing what would really make it difficult
Yeah.
to permit from a environmental perspective. We spent a lot of money and took the time with the deep dive on the properties. So we're not forecasting a lot of environmental issues with the sites that we have in our radar right now.
good job. I know this is your world, so I appreciate it. And I want to talk offline to Scott when I talk to you next week, because somebody gave me some information about another area, so I was going to give it to you. Okay, yeah, we got to get started on that, because you're right, it's 3,000 acres with the buffers.
Oh, we've been working on it. I mean,
Oh, well, we've been
yeah.
working on it for years. It's just, I remember when Ed was looking at areas too, and I don't know, everything was growing so fast, and we couldn't afford it, and we knew we had 30 years on the landfill, and now we don't, so, okay.
Well, the Fed raised interest rates by 3/4 of a point today, so hopefully
I told
prices
you.
will come down. Commissioner Servia.
Yes, thank you. Mike, thank you. What an excellent presentation. And I know you're not done yet, but you are
Right.
you are so knowledgeable, and I'm really grateful for the presentation.
They kept me up for 5 days. Thank you,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yeah,
They
great
had
job.
just called me in the middle of the night and told me to say this.
All right. So I know since I've been here, 2018, we've been talking about a new landfill site, and I'm sure you've said even before that. So, and we used to get, hear regularly about we're looking at this site, that site, this site. So I'm happy to hear that you have some options, even though land is being sold faster than anyone can before you turn around. So real challenges. But when I first met with you and we talked about the landfill, you explained to me how you decide whether the landfill versus incineration versus trucking off-site, how to analyze those different options and how you decide what is the best option for Manatee County. And at the time, the best option for all of the reasons that you analyzed is an on-site landfill was the best option. Is that still the case? Has anything changed?
Not that we're aware of, and what you're referencing is we took a stab because on the water and wastewater side we have master plans. We took a stab at master planning solid waste, and we done a work session with y'all, and I can resupply the book that we created, the master plan, and it walks you through why it was more efficient to landfill than to try to incinerate or regional landfill hauling and stuff. I'd be more than happy to resupply you a copy of that. We haven't took another look at that, but I would say, and I would ask Rob to back me up if I need it, but I still get a lot of trades magazines in solid waste and I still read a lot of it. I don't see there being an option to that yet from what I know of the state and what we're doing.
Yeah, that's good. I know you're always thinking about that, and I've been to those incinerators in different areas, and they're quite impressive. What an operation. Very, very, very expensive. So, all right. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'll get you a copy of it.
Oh, that's not necessary.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Hey, thanks. Great job, my friend. It's always great to see you. It's always great to see you. I have a question. We've been talking about the landfill sites, and I'm sure that you all have identified multiple options that are out there. Yesterday it came up, and I thought this was interesting, and it came up from the chair, and as far as entertaining out-of-county options. Within that 10, let's say if you all have 10, because we have to keep it very general, so we don't want to bring up inflation, everybody start narrowing down.
Right.
Within that 10, is that possible that we can entertain out-of-county options? Because I'm aligned with what the chair was saying, to be
Well,
honest.
fewer municipalities have landfills within their within their limits than have them, or sorry,
Right.
have them out. More of them have outside the limits than inside, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, no cities have landfills inside their.
That's
district.
why I'm asking the question, sir.
So the charge that was undertaken before I got here, which I will tell you the work that Mike and the consultants did on the decision analysis of potential sites that met the criteria were just for Manatee County sites.
Okay, so the answer is no.
So they were not asked, if I think I'm correct, they were not asked to look at out-of-county alternatives. But the chair brought up a very interesting point. And in many parts of the country, they move parts of the world. They move garbage out of their counties and things like that. So it is an option. I mean, we certainly have some inland counties that are hurting for jobs and things like that. So we'll take a look at that. We may go back to the consultants and see what their knowledge is, concurrent with pursuing the properties that are on the decision analysis that was done by the firm. And there are meetings that are taking place to look at those options. As you know, I mean, it's a crazy time to be buying real estate, especially that amount of real estate.
Right, 3,000 acres.
When property in Manatee County is at an all-time peak.
And because this is an ongoing conversation, I'm with Commissioner Cruz on this, a timeline. I mean, do we have, and right now the timeline is 18 to 20 years that it take for the permitting and everything like that, but do we have a timeline where we're saying this is our stop point? We have to make sure that we have
our goal is within 12 months to be able to settle on a site, if not two sites in rank order, to be able to bring to you so that we can begin that process.
So, and I have had conversations with Mr. Gore, with your predecessor, and I have brought up in public meetings that I would like to look at sites outside of the county in the past.
Well,
So it has been brought up. Commissioner Satcher, you're next on the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gore, we, to bring up a tough spot for the whole county and maybe state, so the overflow, the spill at Piney Point, that was an all-hands-on-deck situation for the entire county, and that was your first day on the job, Mr. Hopes, Dr. Hopes. So I recall that we set up a way to, basically, we were going to test it out to take some of the water there. And of course, now there's another plan for the bulk of that water. But could you update me on that as far as has our system been able to take care of that extra water from Piney Point? Has that set us back? There were some concerns about it.
Yes, and we're seeing the effects of it a little bit. I'm going to let Jeff allude to that, let him answer that, because just recently I learned some of the effects we're seeing from what we are taking from that. Nothing major, but something to be noticed. So, Jeff?
Yeah, we're taking about 100,000 gallons a day into the collection system and treating it at the North Water Reclamation Facility. We haven't seen any issues in the collection system to date from a corrosion standpoint. We have seen some minimal corrosion effects at the headworks, but at the treatment plant, but nothing that we haven't been able to absorb and keep under control. So we wouldn't want to increase the volume unless we're instructed to, but right now the volume that we're taking, we're able to accommodate.
And Jeff, would you say that most of if you said that those issues right now are manageable, most of those would originate or be caused by the fact that this water is a little bit different salinity than what you're used to dealing with, because
Correct.
It's partially salt water?
Correct.
So if this was normal water that needed to be treated, it would be easier. You wouldn't have the same effect on our treatment system. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, Dr. Hopes, how close are we to having a solution, or how close is the state, whoever is managing those projects, to having the water at Piney Point ultimately dealt with? Obviously, this was just a stopgap measure. We were trying to take pressure off the walls of those berms, those that were built in 50s, 60s, whatever it was. How close are we to having a real solution that can take care of that water at Piney Point?
Commissioner, as you know, this board approved early on in my tenure the funding to drill the well, and I'll let Jeff update you there. We're making exceptional progress on the well. I believe we have, I'll say nearly, we're 99% through the negotiations with the receiver and DEP on the agreement for funding the pretreatment infrastructure, as well as payment to the county for the operating cost in order to pretreat and then inject the water from Piney Point to dewater the stacks. The receiver is probably within just a couple of weeks of issuing the contract for the first cell closure. They are ready to close one of the cells that has already been dewatered. Wow. And that will be their sort of demonstration project. The team from the engineers and the receiver went out to Colorado State and saw a site that's currently being closed by one of the proposers. And so our goal is to be ready, and I think Jeff can give you the date, but no later than probably April of next year to begin receiving the water from Piney Point, pre-treating it and injecting, so they can move on to the southern cell and begin that closure with a goal, which they seem to still be on the timeline, of being able to have the final cell closed by the end of 2024. So we're doing our part, and it's a race against time so that we can enter the rainy season next year receiving water from Piney Point to dewater those stacks. Jeff, you want to add to that?
Before we get too far down the rabbit hole here, let the county attorney weigh in.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just wanted to add to Dr. Hopes' remarks that we will have an item on the agenda as an add-on tomorrow asking for authority to execute the contracts for the construction of the pretreatment facilities during the recess, because staff is very anxious to lock in the cost of that facility. They're dealing with some pretty intense inflation pressure. So we're going to ask you to give us the authority to do that under the standing recess process. You'll see it again when you come back, and by then we expect we will have the agreement ready with the state for the state's share of the funding.
So we'll be getting into the weeds on this
A little
tomorrow.
bit tomorrow, yes, sir.
If you would prefer to stay on the agenda today.
Well, where I'm going, I'm building a case, and where I'm going, I would need utilities to be there when I get there. So if you'd prefer me to do it tomorrow, it's fine, but we just have utilities all sitting here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. What was the, I think he asked if you had any more to say on that? On the,
I can update on the current progress of the deep injection well. We're at the target zone of 3,400 feet with the pilot hole. Logging is the next step, and packer testing after that, and setting casing. So they're working 24/7 to get that completed, and certainly should be on schedule to have that portion of it done by December or so.
so it sounds like we are at we all understand the overall situation at Piney Point is a big deal, and we're doing everything, state's helping, governor's helping, to get everything done to take care of that. Is the 100,000 gallons a day that we are currently treating, is it critical to the success of making it to, at this point, I believe it was a good idea when we first adopted it, but at this point, is it critical to the success of getting to the injection well? Or is it kind of a feel-good thing, but we'll be fine, we're going to make it to the dewatering regardless?
Yeah, it's important that we continue that because that's not even keeping up with rainfall. Yeah, this, as you know, we continue the state of emergency. We will not be out of the woods at Piney Point until we are taking processed water from Piney Point and pre-treating it and injecting it.
Okay, one other question, and then I may be completely done if I don't get the answer I'm hoping for on this one. We've got 100,000, that's where we're comfortable coming from Piney Point. Right now, the salinity issue is there. Do we have, with rainy season coming up, at our water treatment, do we have any additional capacity beyond that for normal wastewater? I'm not proposing additional from Piney Point, but for normal.
Your permitted capacity at the North Water Reclamation Facility is 7.5. We're currently running around 4.4 million gallons a day. You've got lots of capacity.
So I would like, maybe between today and tomorrow, maybe we could make some phone calls and let the board think about this and utilities think about this as well. And maybe it's impossible because of whatever. But I think the city of Bradenton is 3 years out from, they are going everything they can to up their system. So I wonder is that their wastewater that they just settled?
That's correct.
Okay, I don't want to, disparage them at all. I wonder if we could be friendly neighbors and offer them a little help while they finish their system, and maybe some sort of agreement as far as, funds that would be reasonable for that. I think it might be something worth thinking about for 3 years because we're all swimming in the same water, we're all fishing in the same water. So if something goes to the Manatee River, it doesn't matter if it came from the county or if it came from the city. And if they're working hard to get the issue fixed, then I'm willing to, give them a helping hand while they work hard to get it fixed. Now, if they're sitting on their laurels and not, doing what it takes to get the job done, that's a different story. So I'd like us to maybe take a look think about that, and the board to think about it as well, because it could make a big difference for our waterways. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner
Yeah.
Commissioner Whitmore, you're next on the board.
Yeah, I'm not ready to think about that yet. It's a good idea, but for tomorrow or today, I remember in the agreement, if there was any issues with the materials that we were taking down, when we upped it to 100,000, that we had the authority to stop it immediately if there was any damage. So I know you're saying there's issues, so, and if there is, I think they agreed to pay for if there was any kind of issues to repair it, correct? Yeah, if I remember right.
It's just those first little rash signs,
I
like
know,
we're
'cause I
seeing
live in Saltwater.
electrical issues, corrosion is what I knew from it, Jeff, am I correct? It's not really blossomed yet, or?
Just watch it, and I know you are, so we can talk about that tomorrow. Tomorrow also, I remember Commissioner Baugh was very adamant, and I think the whole board was, only treated water from Piney Point go down that well, and we committed it to the citizens. So I just wanted, if we need to talk about that tomorrow, whatever, that's fine. And corrosion, I talked about that. Oh, the monies, and I know we have the 100 million, and we didn't have the 100 million in this next budget from the state because we still had to use our money, and I talked to Dr. Hopes about this in the past. So somebody could let us know how things, I mean, I know we'll probably have to go next year to the state to ask to put the other 100 million or whatever we need to do that. And the finances, just for what the county's responsibility are. That's probably all stuff in the future. But we did commit to stuff publicly, so I wanted to stay on top of it. Thank you.
Commissioners Baugh and Servia. Commissioner Servia and Commissioner Baugh.
Okay, thank you. So regarding that funding for Piney Point, and I think I asked this yesterday or the day before, I would like to have an understanding of, how our money is going to have to be utilized for that. Are we going to have to front money up front and then get money back from the state? And for how long? Maybe we don't know the answers to these questions, but I think they're important questions as we go forward to understand, because we're talking about over $100 million.
The legislature allocated $100 million to DEP for the first part of the closure.
Right.
We do have schedules that we've been negotiating, and Mr. Clegg and I will be happy to share where we are at a given point in time at the right time.
Yeah, could I add to that, that I think, the intention is to come around and brief each of you individually before the meeting on the 26th so that we can walk you through the details of that with due diligence.
Good. Okay, good, because I understand the first $100 million to DEP, but there is probably a second $100 million that is needed, and I just want to know what our responsibility is going to be.
Our discussions with DEP, our responsibilities have been capped at our investment in the well itself that you've already authorized, that we've already expended, and as you heard, we're already at the 3,400 mark with the well. So.
And Mike, I do have some other just general questions. I was waiting until the end, so I'm going to do that. I'll wait until the end of your presentation. I have some more.
Okay, so Commissioner.
So if there are no more questions.
Well, Commissioner Baugh is on the
I'm sorry,
board.
I'm sorry.
Hopefully she gets back on topic, and then I'm going to recess after her for 10 minutes because we're beyond the recess time.
Yeah, y'all pretty much addressed the 100 million stuff that I was hearing, because I knew it wasn't coming to us. It would be great, wouldn't it? But it's DEP and the state.
They originally offered, by the way.
We don't want that. But, I do know all that's coming, and County Attorney Clegg talked about the agreement coming, so I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you recess,
Sure.
I would just like to announce that Jennifer Harmon, who is our selected candidate for HR Director, is here this afternoon. She will be she's on your agenda tomorrow morning for confirmation, and she's available if you'd like to meet her during recess.
Wonderful.
Now you know who she is. Now you know who she
Welcome.
is. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome. All right, so it's 3:22. We will recess until 3:30, so 8 minutes.
Thank you. I think.
Okay, welcome back. We're here finishing up our workshop discussing utilities, and I'll turn this back over to Dr. Hopes and Mike Gore.
So this is the last slide, and Mike and I are up here together because this has truly been a team effort, and this graph shows you what we've been monitoring with all of the directors for really about the past 8 to 12 months in looking at how their projects are moving and by the spend. And if you just look, at the difference between quarter one of FY22 and quarter two, you can see how the projects are getting accelerated, moving through design. And that's really the leadership of the directors and their teams. And as Mike will tell you, his other partners throughout Manatee County government that contribute to the departmental successes.
Yes, that's really the whole point of this slide. Public Works, Procurement, County Attorney's Office, three major players in us getting projects done. Jake helps us over in public safety a little bit. We get a little bit from everybody, but this is an amazing movement from what I would have known 10, 15 years ago. We would have never moved this kind of projects and this many projects. So it's an amazing, it means your system is a lot better, but we couldn't do it without Public Works for sure, Procurement, the Administration Office, the County Attorney, they all play a huge role in this right here. So just want to say thank you to all those departments.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm done.
I don't have any commissioners on the board. Commissioners, are there any further questions for Mr. Gore? Commissioner Servia.
Yeah, I didn't see us at the last slide. That's why I didn't think we were done. Are you done, Mr. Gore? Oh.
Yes, they're finished. But you said you had questions
I
at
do.
the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not going to go through the rate schedule and all that.
I'm not in charge of the slides.
Okay. All right. So here are my questions. Sometimes I get calls from snowbirds, and they say to me, I'm not even here 6 months out of the year, and I'm getting I don't know how much it is.
Ready to serve charge.
Right. So that's because the utilities department has an investment that they have to pay for based on who uses it. And that's everybody using it, no matter if you use it 6 months a year or 12 months a year.
That is correct.
And does our, does that fee, is it kind of in compliance with other counties
I would
throughout
say
the
it's
state?
very affordable.
Okay.
Versus, and you've seen where City of Braden in the paper this week was going to it. They've been trying to get to that for about 9 years, best of my knowledge. I don't know why it's taken them that long, but you got to maintain that. I mean, for us to go back and forth and turn that service on and off because they want to turn it off for a little while or turn it back on for a few months, our round trip, 8 years ago when I done this, our round trip was like $250 to send a truck out. That's why I turn on, turn off on meters for no payment. So it's really a pretty good deal, Ready to Serve.
It is. And so what do we call it again, so I can write it down? The fee.
Ready to Serve.
Ready to serve
Yeah,
fee?
is that the actual name of the fee? Well, I'm so old school.
We'll get it
I call
to
it
you.
Ready to See.
And it's very common. There are a number of areas around the country where even if you're not using any power, you have a minimum power charge
Right.
that
I
exceeds your utilization. And this fee that they have is pretty low for maintaining ready access to the service.
And it also includes garbage.
It does.
Solid
but
waste, right?
Let me help you because all year long while they're gone, somebody's mowing their yard and putting their yard clippings out there, and there's trash being accumulated from the people that come and clean the houses. So that even makes more sense in my opinion.
That's a really good way to describe it. It is. Thank you. Okay. I saw the great success on the projects. Do we have, and I asked Sheila this, enough procurement people? We have so much going on. Are we good with procurement? You guys need more staff? Everything is in a solid location for procurement?
As of today, we are adding one final position, which was already approved in previous years. We just needed to fill it out, and I think that they are working at tip-top shape.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
And then the relationship between stormwater and the utilities department, And I imagine that you and Chad are constantly communicating.
I tell him no all the time. No.
So I hope, we can get those stormwater projects up and running because it's going to help to reduce the load on the utilities
We
department.
have always tried to support the stormwater program by being there to advocate for the stormwater program because it would make a huge difference in our wastewater and that operation, the cost of operation on our wastewater
Right, good.
infrastructure.
Okay, 2 more questions. Well credits. So I don't really understand well credits other than, you need approval to do an agricultural operation, and then you close down the agricultural operation, and you no longer need those well credits. Do they transfer right over to?
If you do it right and they've been using that well annually, a percentage of that, what they was allowed to pump, we can negotiate to get that credit.
If I could.
Go ahead, Jeff.
A percentage of that credit, and there's 2 mechanisms. They can put them on standby, whereas if they had to go back and use them, for example, if we couldn't provide them with reclaimed water, they could go back and use that well, or they could retire it to us. We're bringing an agreement to the board probably in July or August where you'll actually see that playing itself out, and eventually those will be retired to the county. We'll get a percentage of those credits that we can then apply to our East County or North County well field, and then it increases our source.
Okay, so it's not a one-for-one transfer, but it is a percentage of that then opens up so we have more access to water supply.
That's correct. Depending on the criteria, it's either 90% or 50%.
Okay, and then my last question is about irrigation with potable water. So, and I talk about this from time to time, we have about 20 subdivisions, including the one that I live in, but I hear most often from one down on University Parkway, that there are like 20 or so that were approved with irrigation from a potable water source. And I've talked with your utilities staff a little bit about how, ways of setting up a process to transition out of that, whether it's, putting together a non-ad valorem tax on the property bills, or maybe connecting some to reclaimed if it makes sense, but I'm really interested in helping to wean us off potable water for irrigation and on to something else. And any ideas that I can help to float in the communities that I serve, I'd be happy to do that.
It would take, I guess there's always that possibility, but to date, the return on investment, you just can't get there with it. You got to think about getting that reclaimed water to that subdivision, even if you get everybody in the subdivision on page. So it's probably a bit, I'm just kind of spitballing here because it is a difficult thing to solve. You'd have to get a region, you'd have to get a section of that group together to somehow assess that and do that to make it of value to bring it in there. But tearing up those roads and tearing up that right of way and all, there's a lot of different factors to what that would cost.
And I know reclaimed is not a viable option for probably most of them, or maybe none of them. But, if we could help frame a program where, we could put together the steps. If you get a well, and you would get a well approved this way, and you would get your neighbors, to pay for it this way, and, something that kind of outlines the framework of how these communities can help themselves. Because I think the water prices are only going to go up in the next 5-10 years and beyond, right?
Right.
So it's going to work to their advantage.
It's high value to save our drinking water for that. I mean, we're finally starting to see where that drinking water value is. But I guess that's something that at some point the utility, we have a water conservation group, as you know. I guess maybe that's something we could start to think about, is how we could start chatting with folks about that and maybe helping them with our knowledge of infrastructure and our knowledge of what we do, maybe be able to bring something to those neighborhoods as we go along.
Thank you. That's all I have. Great job. Excellent job. Thank you to all of your staff. Really good job.
Oh, we always enjoy getting in front of y'all. We don't get to see y'all very much. Thank goodness.
All right, commissioners, anyone else?
Well, that means we're not in trouble, Vanessa.
Yeah, this is any additional questions you have for the Utilities Department. His presentation has concluded. Okay, we're going to open this up to public. This is the end of the meeting, ma'am.
All due respect, the agenda said fund balance today, so I just made a couple notes to make sure the staff.
Dr. Hopes?
Yeah,
Good.
it did.
I think originally it did.
It was a mistake, but
Yeah.
I just had a couple questions to make sure.
It was on his, it was on
It
utilities.
was for Scott, really. I mean, it was for the board to make sure they were still on board with it. It's only 4 things.
What is your question?
Okay, first of all, the transitional housing, I saw it was in the CIP for, on 17th Avenue, 2 million. Just want to make sure the board remembers. James brought up the 2 million and the 2 million for Bishop for the remodel, that was mentioned. Food insecurity programs, because I have people calling me and I don't know where. We work with the schools with Meals on Wheels, Feeding Tampa Bay with the schools, Stuff the Bus. We already did the dam. And also, just for an FY for every county commissioner, we had 2 COVID testing places in Manatee County. I went to them both. They've both been closed by private companies, so there is no places. You have to go to the health department and make an appointment.
The health department, right.
That's all. But I want to make sure those monies were in the fund balances. Okay.
Okay, we're going to open this up to public comment.
Sorry.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward to speak on any items that were discussed in today's workshop? If there's anyone here. Okay, we'll go to the phone. Has anyone called in to speak on items in today's workshop?
Yes, one caller, 029, 029.
Caller 029, please press *6 to unmute, and then give us your first, your last name, your county of residence, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak on today's workshop.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Pat Bastian, and I'm in Manatee. I was at the meeting yesterday expecting to be able to talk about this situation, and it got cut a little bit short. But I just want to remind that, again, having met with all of you and having talked to you several times in front of the different boards, that we over here in Twin Rivers are interested in getting the Mulholland Road east to Rye Road completed. And as Mr. Satcher said yesterday, we already own the right-of-way. It's after having listened to the your budget folks for the last couple of days, I can see there's some really, really major issues and decisions that you're making, and I know this isn't one of them, but it is to us, and we would really appreciate it if we can get that line item into the capital budget for investigation to make sure that we actually have the engineering done so that the road can be put through, and then looking at what's needed in order to actually do the construction. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any other callers?
No more raised hands.
Okay, we're going to close public comment. Mr. Gore, thank you so much. Dr. Hopes, thank you. We'll see everybody tomorrow. We're adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Good to see you.